In the heart of St. Petersburg, beneath the city's cold stone streets, lived a man no one knew, not really. He called himself nothing, for even names were too lofty a claim for a kind of man he believed himself to be. He lived alone in a small damp apartment. His only companions were books, thoughts, and the sound of his own endless maddening introspection. He had once been a government clerk, a minor one, but now he was retired, or more precisely, removed from life altogether. He had vanished from the world above and entered the underground. And so he lived, not dead, not quite alive, just thinking. He spoke not to people, but to the void, to you and to me, to anyone who might care to listen or judge. He said he was sick but didn't want to be cured. He said he was pitiful but took pride in his honesty. Above all, he was conscious, painfully, fatally conscious of everything, of how he acted, how he felt, how he degraded himself, and yet could not stop. He despised the men of action, those who marched forward like machines, confident, logical, and clear. For he knew the truth. Man does not want logic. Man wants freedom, even if that freedom leads him straight to ruin. Once, long ago, before he retreated fully underground, he had walked among others. He remembers now a time when he had tried to belong. There was the officer, tall and proud, who once pushed him aside in the street without even noticing. The insult festered in him like a wound. For years, he plotted petty revenge, bumping into the man in return, walking tall, restoring his honor. And one day he did it, collided with him shoulder to shoulder. But the officer walked on, unbothered, unaware. The victory was hollow, his revenge a joke he played on himself. Then there was the dinner. He had received an invitation, or perhaps forced himself into it, to join his old schoolmates. They had always mocked him, he knew that, but he went anyway, compelled by a desperate hunger for dignity. He sat at their table, out of place, unwanted. He tried to impress them, insult them, beg for approval, all at once. The evening ended in humiliation. Still, he followed them, stubborn and broken, to a brothel. There, in the dim candlelight of that place, he met Lisa, a young woman, a prostitute. He spoke to her with strange sincerity, asking her why she had chosen such a life. He spoke of degradation, of love, of false promises the world gave to girls like her. He said he could save her, or at least she could save herself. And something in her eyes changed. She listened. Days later, she came to him, to his hole in the ground. She stood there, quiet, hopeful, and human. And he destroyed her. He could not bear it. Her kindness, her trust, they exposed his own ugliness. So he lashed out. He said cruel things. He insulted her, belittled her, until she left, weeping. Then he stood there in the silence, clutching at the fragments of himself, begging forgiveness too late, as always. He never saw her again. Now, in his lonely chamber, buried beneath the noise of the city, he writes his notes, pages filled with rage, regret, defiance, and sorrow. He writes to explain himself, perhaps to justify, or perhaps to be remembered by someone. But even he isn't sure if he's telling the truth, and so he stops. Or as he puts it, we are still born, let us live a little longer. The man beneath the floorboards is no villain, no hero. He's a mirror. He's the part of us that overthinks, that sabotages love, that fears joy, that resents the world we don't know how to live in. He's the voice inside when we stare too long inward and find not truth but trembling. He says, I live here, below, not beneath the city, no, beneath life, beneath your clean streets and your neat ideas. I watch you from the cracks in the floorboards, you with your smiling logic and mechanical dreams. You call man rational, predictable, programmable. You think you can build him a paradise, a crystal palace with formulas and ethics and straight lines. You think he'll be grateful. Actually, man does not want harmony. He wants freedom, even if that freedom leads him to jump off a cliff. Do you understand what it's like to feel everything and to be paralyzed by it? To hear your thoughts echo louder than any voice around you? To dissect every smile, every silence, until nothing is left but bones. That's what I am, a man of consciousness and no action. Not because I cannot act, but because I know too well what it means to act. And so I stayed here, underground, where nothing is expected of me, where failure is my only success, where I can speak endlessly and no one listens. I write all this not for you, but because I cannot help it. You think this is confession, redemption. No, this is my tombstone. I etched it myself with words sharper than steel. Now go, leave me in silence. I was never meant for your world, and your world was never meant for me. Notes from the Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky. His most groundbreaking works, and often regarded as the first true existentialist novel in the world literature. With this novel, Dostoevsky broke away from conventional 19th century realism and entered the realm of psychological, philosophical fiction. This book directly challenges rationalism, utopianism, and Western notions of progress, offering a complex, disturbing portrait of the fragmented human soul. Dostoevsky stands among the greatest novelists of the world literature, a Russian author, essayist, and philosopher. Dostoevsky delved into the depths of human psyche, like few before and after him. His works explore morality, suffering, faith, nihilism, free will, and redemption, often through deeply flawed characters caught in existential crisis. Through his writings, he shaped not only modern literature but also existentialist thoughts, psychology, and theology. Notes from the Underground has two parts to it. Part 1 is a philosophical monologue, and Part 2 is a narrative account of his earlier life. This section humanizes the abstract ideas of Part 1 by showing them in action through the narrator's own self-destructive behavior. Key philosophical insights explored include rebellion against rationalism. Man is sometimes extraordinarily, passionately in love with suffering. Free will versus determinism. What is a man without desires, without free will, and without the power of choice, but a stop in an organ pipe? Hyperconsciousness. The underground man is cursed with excessive self-awareness, which leads to paralysis. He cannot act without doubting himself. He represents modern alienation, the kind where introspection becomes so deep that it leads to moral and social inertia. The pleasure of pain. He explores how people can derive a twisted kind of satisfaction from suffering, humiliation, and self-inflicted wounds. This challenges the simplistic notion that humans are always motivated by self-interest and pleasure. And finally, anti-heroism. The underground man is not grand, not tragic, just petty, cruel, intelligent, and self-defeating. He represents the petty modern ego trapped in cycles of overthinking and self-sabotage. The novel ends abruptly with the underground man breaking the fourth wall, saying, "But enough, I won't write anymore," from the underground. It's as if he's exhausted even himself. The final chapters end not with resolution, but with fragmentation and unfinished sentences, symbolizing his inability to find peace or closure. The underground man's fragmented, contradictory voice, Dostoevsky presents a searing critique of rationalism, idealism, and human arrogance. The novel shows that man is not merely a calculating machine of self-interest, but a complex, emotional, often irrational being who might choose pain over pleasure, chaos over order, and destruction over harmony, simply to assert his will. It is a portrait of spiritual exile and psychological torment, a prelude to existentialist literature, and a mirror for the modern soul struggling to make sense of freedom, morality, and meaning in a disenchanted world. The book reveals painful truths. Human beings are not fully rational. Don't assume that human problems can be solved with systems or formulas. People are complex, and irrationality is a part of what makes us human. Free will is sacred, even when it's destructive. Real freedom includes the freedom to fail, to suffer, to be wrong. We cannot build a meaningful life if we remove human unpredictability. Overthinking can paralyze the soul. While reflection is valuable, overanalysis can rob life of authenticity. Sometimes you must live, not dissect your reasons for living. Alienation and loneliness are modern conditions. Human beings need connections and love. Pride, fear, and self loathing can keep us underground, cut off from the very things we long for. Suffering is a part of human condition. Don't run from suffering. Sometimes pain reveals truth that comfort cannot. But be careful. Don't use suffering as a mask of avoiding vulnerability. Dostoevsky invites us to see ourselves in the underground man, not to admire him, but to recognize the dangers of living too much inside your own mind. Think deeply, but don't let your thoughts imprison you. Value freedom, but don't use it to destroy what's beautiful. Seek truth, but don't lose your humanity in search. Most of all, choose love and connection, even when your pride tells you not to. It teaches us that without humility, compassion, and courage, our minds can become prisons. It's a warning. You can be brilliant and still ruin your life if you lose touch with your heart. And above all, freedom is not just the right to choose, it's the courage to choose what makes life meaningful. Don't become the voice beneath the earth. Rise, love, speak, fall, and heal. Because even in a world that makes no sense, to live is still the greatest act of all. Remember, you're not a logical machine, and that you're allowed to be chaotic. Remember, to see yourself clearly, even in your flaws, is the beginning of freedom. No truth is too dark to lead towards light.